Well, good morning, kidlets, and thanks for holding on there while we get some last-minute noodling in, taking care of some technical stuff as we go. Welcome, everybody, to episode 20 of, I almost said Secrets of Saturn because I have it up in front of me. Unintended Consequences. Welcome, and welcome to the whole tribe. We got Winston and formerly Hip, Bill Tano, Janet, and Mark Bloom. Hey, welcome. Nachikita, Sue Finelli. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. We have this morning our special guest. I'll be calling him back in just a moment. Don't forget that tomorrow, 7 a.m., beginning 7 a.m. Pacific time, it's UTC -7 for Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World, as we take a closer look at some of the proverbs and sayings from Scripture. And then 5 p.m., that's 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. Eastern time is Solar Scripture, as we kind of take a look backwards at what Wayne and I talked about last week. So that having been said, without any further ado, I'll get Jason back with us, and we're going to talk to Jason about his own awakening experience. You can see how professional this is. We just do this live. Hopefully he's back. He's nearby. Hang on. I know I just talked to him a minute ago. Perhaps he became indisposed. Well, we were on his phone, and I think he was headed to his studio. So we'll see what happens here. Oh, how embarrassing. It's always something. It's not the windmill, it's the pigs. Okay, we'll try that, and we'll try one more time with Mr. Jason. Yeah, I know, Rethink, it's like it's time to drain the pasta. So, yes, he's getting the ladle out for the gravy Jesus. Well... apparently more noodling. Yes, we'll just do that for a while. We certainly can cover stuff, but it would be very sad if suddenly he lost internet connection. I mean, we were chatting just before I started noodling. I said, all right, I'll call you right back. Okay. Well, we'll wait for Mr. Lindgren to ping me back. Perhaps there's been some issue there. I know I was calling on his phone. I think he was uncertain about whether his internet connection was going to be stable today. I'm not sure. With that, I hope that Mr. Lindgren makes it back. I didn't have anything else prepared today. I know, it's funny, isn't it? He's not a morning person, although, it is almost noon. It's 11 o'clock there. But we did, actually, I promise we were just talking just before I started playing the noodle, and we just decided I would just call him right back. So let's see, we'll try it again here. And otherwise, it's going to be the best joke in history. Good morning. Are you with me, Jason?
Good morning.
Hey, you're there. I was like, oh no,
yes,
something terrible has happened. Okay. Well, welcome, Mr. Lindgren. Did you get your coffee?
Oh yes.
Outstanding.
Today's delight is Summer Moon Cafe.
Ooh.
Or coffee, I guess I should say. Summer Moon Coffee from the island of Bali.
Oh, Bali. That's outstanding. Is that a medium roast? A light roast?
It's a medium roast,
roast?
which are my favorites right now.
Yeah. I kind of do a combination, so I'd usually have 3 or 4 different beans going on at the same time. Typically, it's about a third light roast and then some medium roasts in there. And it's usually pretty tasty. I'm a big coffee lover, as you know. Jason, thanks for joining us today. For those who don't know, we became friends over a period of time. Really, again, as I think most people know you from Crrow777. We started talking, and we had a lot in common, music industry and other things as well. Since that time, well, we become pretty fast friends, and I've been fortunate enough to you've been awesome to have me as a guest on your Secrets of Saturn stream, the brilliant Wayne McCroy, and a few other things as well. So I thought, as part of, in fact, it was on Secrets of Saturn, the first of this year that I first came up with the idea of the Awakening Project, and that has kind of spun out of control into what we're doing here. So I thought it'd be great, and you've again very gracious to get up before this is, I know, very early for you. Most musicians don't know that 11 o'clock occurs more than once a day.
Oh.
So I'm delighted and honored to have you with us, my friend. So again, I thought it would be just a great thing for all of us, right? To get a better look into you. You're always the calm and collected one on the Crow Show, as well as Secrets of Saturn, and you do a great job at interviewing others. And I thought I'd just kind of turn the tables and put you on the hot seat today, and give us a better insight into Gravy Jesus.
A name that I don't know who started it, but I thought it was hysterical, so I never stopped it.
No, it absolutely is. If there's anybody here that has no idea what that means, of course, I think it's Owen Benjamin, perhaps, is where the gravy thing started. Just the idea that
that's it's one of his words, and I don't know all his terms of things. So when people say things like grabbling or
grabblers or whatever,
different words that's like, I guess, his made up thing, his shtick.
Yeah. He does a
thing came from him, but I like that one. Gravy makes sense to me.
It does.
Gravy means rich and good, and it just adds something extra to other things.
Yeah, exactly. So gravy has kind of become the term to, if you're really ladling out the good stuff, that deep dive information, or putting a great take on things, that's ladling up the gravy. And of course, you have the gorgeous hair, and I am Baldini,
and I can actually tell you how I'm maintaining that into my late 40s.
Yeah, that's with Kelsey's product there, right?
Yeah, I was skeptical, but yeah, this stuff called Monate, Monat, absolutely mind-blowing. It's expensive, and I always tell people that it's really pricey, but oh my God, does it work. It works.
I may have to turn on the little missus to that. As she gets older, right, she gets concerned about some of her hair thinning, and she's like, oh, come on, baby. But she always has had a very thick head of hair. So maybe I'll turn her on to that and see if it does anything for her. Oh, cool. I just saw that you dropped that for me. I appreciate that. So you have been a hair farmer then?
Absolutely, since the age of about 17.
I was going to say, for I would assume most of your life being in and around the music business. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell us about Little Gravy Jesus. So tell us about your family and growing up and what that looked like.
I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, which if I never go there again, I wouldn't miss it.
I was going to say, I'm sorry to hear that, but
yeah,
I didn't want to interrupt. Yeah,
I'm from a place now that I've been all over the place, and especially living in the greater New Orleans area and just experiencing culture, especially the food culture, night and day difference. I'm from the land of bland. The only thing they do really well there is pizza. It's the one thing that there isn't a lot of here, but I'll definitely take the trade-off. But northeastern Pennsylvania is where I'm from. Predominantly the area that I grew up with, it's a lot of Italians, Irish, and Polish. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather was his parents were actually off the boat, as they say. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that in me. But I'm also Cherokee, Italian, and Welsh. So I'm a
mixture.
As my deceased friend Bernie would say, Czechopolak Hungarian.
Ah, nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff.
How long it took him to come up with that one.
Right. So siblings?
I have an older brother, full brother, and then I have a half brother with my father, who is my older brother's nothing like me. We don't even look alike. The joke has always been, you must be adopted because I look like John, my father, our father. And but my half brother Gary greatly resembles John Lindgren. And so he and I look like we're brothers. And he's how old is Gary? I think he's 7 years younger than me. Somewhere around there, 5 years, 7 years, something like that. And he's great. He's a great dude. He adores my daughter Aura. He's they play games together because they're both Uber gamers. And
nice.
After our father got ill in 2014 and unexpectedly died. He had organ failure, just shut down.
Wow.
He decided he didn't realize what I was like, and I only had a smattering idea of what he was like. We decided to try and have an actual brotherly relationship, and we're great now. Like this, it's like because his other siblings, his other halves are very similar to my full brother. So it's like that. There's just not a lot going on there, not a lot of connection. Unfortunately, I mean, just not everybody's the same kind of person to get along, you know.
Sure. And so, in your family, was there any religious or non-religious sort of belief system? Was there, anything that was out of the ordinary? Did you feel like hardcore one way or another?
No, I mean just the loosely Christian thing. I was raised Methodist.
Okay, cultural Christianity.
I went to a church called Dornston Methodist, and really nice people. I did really like the pastor, the older one who retired when I was younger, and then the nicer middle-aged fellow who, when I did the confirmation and all that when I was in my teens, I got along with everybody, and that was it. I mean, my mother is into, just generally speaking, just into believing in Christianity and all that, but they're not super obsessive, they're not
right.
Crazy, creepy Christians, as I call them.
Right. But so cultural...
We know what those can be like.
Yes, I do. Having been around Christianity most of my life, I've seen some of the very positive benefits, but unfortunately the vast majority are something entirely different. It's as if they read a different book altogether. I don't even know what to make of it. Okay, so, and then I take it, so probably as many do, sometime in your perhaps teens, mid-teens, late teens, it was a little square for you, and you just kind of moved on from that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stuck with it. I'm trying to think how old I would have been. Yeah, into my late teens, just because I liked the environment. And I always called the Methodist church I went to Christianity Light because they weren't uber serious. Like, they were just really nice people. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I can deal with this. Sure. But I was also starting to study other things and look into other things at the time. So even at that young age, I was trying to just get a better grip on the world from multiple perspectives, I guess you could say. I mean, it wasn't like how things would be later. I mean, this is pre-internet, obviously, so it's anything you learn, you got to start flipping through books, and that's all I was doing, is just checking out different things or talking to people who were learned. But
so
it didn't take...
So when you say other things, are we talking sort of like, occultish things? Are we talking different religious ideas, different traditions,
all
Buddhism?
that,
So everything. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been into the occult in like a negative sense. Ever. I've always been a very positive person. I've always tried to do things to help people.
No, I've seen pictures of you with candles.
Yeah, I can explain that. As a matter of fact,
I've seen pictures of you wearing velvet.
And paisley.
And looking very serious and into those dark
very
candles.
Very serious. And what's funny is that's only half of the picture.
Oh. Was there like a Ouija board on the other side of that, or Baphomet?
If you look at what I sent you in the Skype, take a look.
Okay, wait. No.
And what that is, and you can put that up if you would like, because that's probably in the public domain. If it's not, I don't care if it's out there. And what several crazy, creepy Christians are getting bent out of shape over is this ridiculous picture of me from like 16, 17 years ago.
Okay, that's is that a jack-o'-lantern?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look behind me, there's black, I don't know what Joe used. I guess it was... Okay, so this picture was taken around Halloween time, and when you see the whole picture, my old songwriting partner, Mike, is with me, and we were going to do some stuff together, and we wanted a couple of pictures to use for promotions. So the whole picture is Mike, who's just dressed in like a sweater and jeans. And Joe said, oh, I'll do the pictures for you. Just come over down to the basement. I've got it set up from the party. And as you can see, it's just the candles he had. And then there's a jack-o'-lantern. And the whole thing behind me and everything had like, he had like black garbage bags or something up everywhere because he had hung stuff on them, like stuffed animals. Like, he'd just gone crazy making this giant Halloween party. So this picture was taken around Halloween of maybe, I don't remember, 2004. It's somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, when I was playing with that fellow Mike.
Put that up there.
And as you can see, he's just wearing very mundane clothes. I've always had a little bit more of a flair for the fancy. And for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge fan of the 1960s. And I liked that look. I like the velvet jackets and the paisley shirts, Converse sneakers, like just all that kind of. If anybody's familiar with like the way Hendrix would dress or the later Beatles look, I just like that stuff. I thought it was classy in an eccentric kind of way, and eccentric is definitely a good adjective for me. So.
Well, I mean, I've been pictured in worse, and certainly darker and more I'm going to say creepy or whatever sort of dress. I went through a phase, no doubt, in my teens and even in my early 20s. I was a little whack job. But I just find it hilarious that is the source of what some of the rabble rousing came from.
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous? I still have that shirt too. Two of them, in fact. But yeah, like I said, crazy, creepy Christians just grabbing onto whatever they can and extrapolate. Like people are saying, I could see the darkness in his eyes. It's like, no, well, it was dark in there, so I was squinting a little bit because that's just what Joe did, and he tried to capture that ambiance, as you could tell, like the way the candles are glowing. I guess he used a low ISO or whatever, or a high ISO, I guess that would be, and I don't know, whatever.
Well, I've seen that you have a
out of context.
Yeah, well, I've seen that you have a tendency to be kind of dramatic, right? So you're giving it the I'm very serious look. It's like, okay.
But if you watch my live streams, all I'm doing is laughing my ass off the entire time.
I know. It's funny. Okay, so this would be, again, I guess we're that picture again a little jumping forward a bit, but certainly where we are in the timeline, somewhere in your late teens, you're kind of looking at a variety of different things and trying to better understand the world. So what were some of the enlightening things that you found? What are things that you recall that made a difference or an impact?
Going to different churches. One of the things I was doing and absorbing a lot. Our church, the Dornston Methodist Church I went to, was really big with I don't even know what you call it, but like cross-pollination of the different religions.
Okay.
So we did a Catholic one, we did a synagogue, which I found very interesting. Just different approaches, and a couple other churches as well. I just was absorbing everything and realizing that very early on I picked up the fact that, you know what, you don't have to have just one strict viewpoint on everything and everyone else has to go in the fire. That's just not the way it works. Like if you're trying to be a good person and you're just trying to be genuine, and I mean, I always say that the base message of Christianity from the way I picked up on it, and I'm not talking about the crazy obsessives, I'm just saying, just generally speaking, it's don't be an asshole. Bottom line, don't be an asshole. Be cool to your fellow man.
I think that would be a central theme of I think most ideas that at least try to impress morality upon some sense of morals on people is at least what we would call the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do to you, right? Don't do something that you wouldn't want pressed upon you, that sort of thing. Certainly. My reading of it, my understanding, Christianity has got the extra bit, right, of dealing with the person of Jesus as a savior for different reasons, but without getting into the theology of it. I think that, people can certainly do a lot worse than trying not to be an asshole. I mean, I find, I don't want to get out the hammer and beat people over the head too much about the way people can be, but it does seem, whether it is a religion or whether it is a cult of anything, whether that's scientism or whether it's politics, that people seem to get this idea that once they're firmly ensconced in a belief system that they accept, that anyone else who does not accept it is somehow on the outs, and they're stupid, they're bad, and so they behave any way they want to. right? So, certainly when it comes to the idea of a religion and, Christianity in particular, those who adopt a viewpoint that they're saved and anybody else who doesn't is suddenly bad and I got to treat them with hatred, misses the entire point, I think, of certainly in that religion, the teachings of Jesus. It is remarkable to me. And again, without taking on that whole mantle, and it's probably something, again, I could address at some point, my observations about those who take on the label of Christianity and but behave the antithesis of it in every way is to me fairly remarkable. And I mean, we've talked a number of times. Kind of my perspective on things. I can. I have the way that I read it, and I have my own very personal relationship with the Creator, which, as I've said before, makes me a really crappy Christian in terms of their religion, because I don't really subscribe to much of the religious theology that they throw out, which is primarily traditions of man, and so I don't really accept those traditions of man as having really much validity, right? I go specifically both with what I can see insofar as I accept that it's legit, right? The teachings of Jesus, and primarily the relationship I have with my Creator, and I trust them, as I put it, Dad and the family there, to lead me into wisdom and understanding, and so primarily that's it. I find the Bible itself to be an invitation, right, to that kind of personal relationship that I think anybody could have, irrespective of what they label themselves or how they think of it. That if you're in touch with that, the person and the beings who created everything, I don't think you can go wrong, right? My experience is that those beings are the very author and definition of love, and that's the only place you can really get it. And then you do that, you're going to be fine. You start following rules, the only thing you can do is compare yourself to others and how well they keep the rules, and that's not going to go well for anyone. Again, anyway, I don't want to pick up that hammer too hard, but I think we've, especially those who have been around it or begin to speak the truth and find themselves around, as you call crazy, creepy Christians, they, I call them chinos, right? Christians in name only.
Right.
But
right.
if you find yourself around it, you certainly find yourself on the receiving end of a lot of opprobrium there, as they, I get, a lot of false teachings. Like, what's that? What do I teach? Trust Dad, talk to him, and don't listen to me, listen to them. It's pretty heretical, I guess. I guess that seems evil. Anyway, all right. So kind of the idea then that you looked around and said, okay, I don't accept the idea that there's just one way to be, or that some certain people behave in a manner that's inconsistent. I guess I'll ask it this way. Many people around that period of time, right, that they sort of either reject their parents' beliefs or societal beliefs, often at that time find themselves losing interest or not being that interested in things of a spiritual or philosophical nature. I kind of get the hint that you didn't lose interest. In fact, you were more interested in trying to better understand those things. Tell us about that.
Right. Now, I did lose interest in just, again, what I was calling Christianity light from
Sure.
my Methodist upbringing. That I did. I stopped going to church into my 20s. It just didn't grab me anymore, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I was looking to all sorts of other things. And for all the crazy, creepy Christians who like to attack me, I was looking into things like spiritualism and all that kind of stuff because I thought it was fascinating and I wanted to know what validity there was there. So I was looking at different aspects to what might be the greater nature of our actual world, our lives, our universe, whatever you want to call it. And I looked at all those things, and I never subscribed to any. I've never in my entire life subscribed, since I got out of my teens, since I became an adult, I have never subscribed to any one thing. And I'm at the point now, and I was even in my 20s, I was like this. I don't even believe in an actual devil or Satan or anything. Like I don't believe in that. I don't believe it exists. It just doesn't seem right to me. It seems quite silly, to be honest. Are there negative forces? Yeah, they're definitely negative forces. And I've seen that. I've seen that there's negativity, especially that can affect the weak-minded. Those things do happen. But as far as just people who are absolutely obsessed with if you light a candle and wear a certain kind of clothing that automatically makes you a devil worshiper. Well, that's freaking ridiculous in every way. And I've never subscribed to any of that stuff. I have always tried to be a decent human being. And of course, I'm fallible and have made mistakes. But for the most part, I have always tried to be a decent human being. I've always helped a lot of those around me if I could. And I've gotten better at that. Obviously, you're still kind of a dick when you're in your 20s. You know, you still have that angsty thing going on. But
at least I was.
For the most part. Huh?
I said at least I was. I often would like to go back and...
It's in general. And I was never like an evil person ever. You know, you're just a little bit more of a selfish person in your youth because you've got all that fire going on and your whole life's ahead of you, and just that whole notion you want what you want and you want it now, like all that kind of stuff. So of course I was into that, but I've never been into anything dark or demonic or any of that stuff, and a lot of that stuff I don't even think is real.
So you've never taken that on as an intentional left-hand path or that kind of stuff.
No.
Right? Yeah. I mean, again, this episode is about you and not me. Again, I have a little bit different view, but it doesn't really matter. Again, I don't think that it's my business to tell other people. Again, from my perspective, it's up to every person finds their own path and what their views of things. And my perspective is often sort of like the best way to describe it is taking a photograph, right? A photograph is at best a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional world, and it gives you at least that view is from that particular perspective is accurate, right, to that view. But it cannot in any way describe the entire world in three dimensions. It's accurate to what it sees, right? But it's not a full description of everything. And so I don't necessarily dismiss anybody's description of how they see things because it's their photograph, right? It's the perspective that they're at and what they can see at that moment. And then if you travel, right? That's one of the things that I know that we've talked about is travel really changes your perspective of things because you get to see things in a different way. And so traveling in the sense of wisdom and intellect will take you to different views, and you can look at all these different scenic viewpoints, right, and then get a better view. So that's been my kind of take, right? Is that I don't necessarily discount other people's viewpoints because that's a perspective that they have, and it's accurate to where they are, right? And so that's why I just bang my head against the wall and go, what is up with people that they must insist that.
Their way or the highway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. That they're absolutely right. I find, again, even under, this is kind of stuff I didn't mean to get in this direction, but I find it even within the truth community, right, that many of the people, even
same thing happens.
Yeah, even who have good information, right, or good perspective on things, I find some of their exegesis is just for shit, man. I mean, it starts out with declarations, right? This is this, and this is this, and this is this. Okay, so where's the evidence? Oh, you're just too stupid to understand it. You don't know my truth. Okay, well, that's. I'll just toss that right now. Where's the meat?
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Where's the meat? So my thing is always good exegesis. Right, starts with the premise. You introduce the premise. You show the evidence, and then you attempt either draw conclusions or at least express a hypothesis. Right, so other people can consider and look further if they want to. Starting out with a declaration and insisting that is absolutely accurate, like that seems to me very silly. But again, that's my view, and it doesn't necessarily mean I expect that I'm, mistaken just from, if nothing else, from data anemia, right? I just don't have all the information. Anyway. All right. So let's go back to the story. So we're in your late teens. You're doing like most teens are, which is be kind of self-focused, self-centered, trying to, get all the stuff that life has to offer, whether that's, wine, women's song, all that sort of stuff. Certainly, when did you begin to pick up music? When did you become a musician?
Well, for the most part, when I was in my teens and into my 20s, I was a total nerd. I was into Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, kind of sort of Dungeons and Dragons, like role-playing games in general, like all that stuff. I was a total nerdball. Sci-fi in general, I always liked all that stuff. And that stayed with me all the way into my 20s and later. But when I was 17, I also started playing guitar. So I started transitioning as I was going through my 20s, getting more into music, getting good enough that I could actually play with other people and that kind of thing. So even though I was always still kind of a nerd in the background in my head, the music thing started taking over for me. And when I was younger, I was into heavier music. My first band I put together was very Iron Maiden-y. I had a singer who was that raw kind of power singer, power metal, and this was the early 90s, so that kind of thing was still around at the time. So there was that, and then I started focusing more and more on music. Then I started liking the the technical side of it. I started little by little learning about studio stuff as I got older. I became friends with somebody who had an old school studio in the back of his music store where I'm from in Pennsylvania, and he started allowing me, because they stopped using it for the most part, and I'd gotten to know him well enough that he started letting me go into the studio whenever I wanted and mess around. So here I was, as I got older, wanting to learn more about the technical side of things. Pulling, he had a Fostex 16-track half-inch setup.
MTX 16, I think that was.
An old, I think so. With an old tangent board. So it kind of had a Led Zeppelin-y sound, like that 70s-y solid state but punchy. That's kind of like what it sounded like when you recorded in there.
So
nowadays,
was it a tangent?
I would totally appreciate it so much more than I did back then, because back then I was like, oh, this is like old 80s stuff that I'm learning on, and this is like right before digital hit.
Right. So it seemed outdated and old school. So was that?
But I was very appreciative, because I'm pulling stuff off. They had just a whole huge rack of people who had recorded in there for quite a few years, some of which was very well done and very clever, because as anybody who's familiar with the stuff knows, when you only have X amount of tracks, you have to use X amount of tracks or start doing clever things to bounce them down to get more tracks.
Exactly.
And I started finding things like that and seeing how they did it, and it just got my mind working. And they had what I now know as a lot of the better early digital gear in there, and plus some old school analog compressors and things like that. And I didn't really play with them too much, but I did fiddle around. The big thing I was trying to teach myself was how to mix. I wanted to be able to pull up the tracks, listen to everything, start fiddling with the EQs, and just get everything balanced. That was my first real big foray into the technical side of music production, and that's what I kept doing. And then I started getting better and better at it.
Mm-hmm. So did you seek out any mentor, specifically a person, or did you just try to read as much as you could, or just use trial and error? How did that process occur?
Yeah, I was reading a lot of Recording Magazine. I loved Recording Magazine. Mm-hmm. I still look at it sometimes. Tape Op I found later on.
Yep.
For some reason, I didn't find that early on, even though it's been around forever.
Neither did I. It was not until I was in the industry, actually, in the manufacturing side, was I aware of that. So.
Yeah, I actually have my ex's brother works for Empirical Labs, or at least he used to a long time ago. I haven't spoken to them in years, but he actually signed me up for it because it's free. He's like, oh, here, let's sign you up for Tape Op since you're interested in all this stuff. And that was great. I was like, oh, wow. And then that just helped. And I like reading what people do in their studios and how they start as like project studios and then work their way up, which is kind of what I'm trying to do now.
Right.
In the house that we bought. I want to do the same thing. I have enough gear to probably be considered a project studio at this point, but I have some nice gear, and I want to build it up as much as I can. Like, let's see, like, how good can I do this?
It's funny because I'm telling on myself a little bit here, but depending on what time frame it was that you were reading those industry trades, for a period of time, I wrote a number of articles for Mix Magazine, Electronic Musician, EQ Magazine. I wrote
I've looked at all of those.
Yeah, a number of technical articles specifically on. I was fortunate to learn from some guys, who had been at the very birth of the industry. They were making records, in the 40s and 50s. Some of them, in mono, straight to wax, right? And so they're the way they got the mix was literally to put 3 or 4 mics in a room on rollers. They had big rolling mic stands, and they would roll them around in between the musicians to capture a mix. And of course, there was one dedicated to the singer to get that closer. But really, it was all proximity effect. And so they taught me basically the holy grail: mic choice, mic placement, and gain structure, and pay attention to phase, right? And so I made an early living as a tracking engineer. That's primarily what I did, and put the tracks up at flat, dry, and normal, and you're pretty close to a record. So made a pretty good living doing that. But I was just going to say there's a chance, again, depending on what time frame you were reading those, that you had read some of my articles. All right, so so did you were you pursuing this as a career? Or just for entertainment to begin with? I mean, everybody at that age wants to be a rock star. I know I did.
Oh, sure. I went to college. My first year of college, I was a psych major, and I was kind of bored. And I just told this to Rose the other day, as a matter of fact. I liked psychology, but it was kind of boring to me. Mm-hmm. And I had the sad situation of having a professor who, unfortunately, had a terrible stroke. Mm. And half of his body was almost completely paralyzed. And I know I wasn't the only one. He was very difficult to understand.
Right.
And it just kind of killed my interest at that point because he was one of the main professors. Mm-hmm. Very, very nice fellow. I totally respected him. But I was just like, oh, my God, I really just can't follow this very well. And, that's not good in your second semester.
Sure.
So I did the huge mistake of switching over to being a music major. And I'll say right now, I had absolutely no business being a music major. I don't have any business being a music major today. I'm not good enough. I'm not learned enough. I'm not competent enough in any of these things. Oh. I'm completely self-taught. I'm a rock guitarist, and I am absolutely nowhere near capable of competing with people who do composition like my friend Brett. Like what he does, I couldn't even come close to doing.
I think you sell yourself short, my friend. I mean, I was primarily self-taught, and I learned, music theories directly from a book, right? Straight from the library. And I think, again, it just depends on how much effort you want to put into it. Right? If you're comfortable with where you're at and you just like, I don't need to do that, then you probably won't. But I don't think you're incapable of it. I know you well enough to know that if it was something you really wanted to learn, you totally would.
Well, the problem was that they had expectations that I couldn't possibly do at 18, 19.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I get you. I
couldn't do it now.
The previous training, yeah.
Right. See, the problem is that I picked up on really quick, and and even then I realized I was in over my head, but I tried for a little while. They had this expectation, and I shouldn't even say expectation. It was just like, you did that because you've been playing your instrument for most of your life. You've been in band. You knew this stuff. Like there was a piano class I had to take. Well, I barely knew. I mean, I knew what the keys were and all that, but I couldn't sight read.
Sure.
And they put in front of you, and you was like, okay, you have to do that.
Yeah. So these were classes for people who had been piano performance majors, right? And now they're going to go on to be a band teacher.
Yep. I had no business being there. I'm a rock guitar player. That's what I was then. I'm a little more than a rock guitar player now, but for the most part, I couldn't do it today. I mean, there are things I'm really good at now, mm-hmm. many, many years later, but being in actual music school, hell no, I have no business being there.
Okay, so you went from psychology, and then you went to music, and that was, I think, I can imagine, kind of a disappointment or a frustration there.
Massive, because, and the reason why I keep reiterating that is because I'm disgusted in hindsight with, like, not one person of authority at Wilkes University had the brains to say, Jason, you've been playing guitar for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was at the time. This isn't where you should be. Like, this is... You haven't been playing flute since you were 6.
Right.
Like I had no business. Nobody asked me, do you know music theory? And I'd taken one class in high school, and I did really well in it because It's not that hard. But I could not sight read. I could not play any instrument to a level that I would be considered seriously proficient. I played rock and roll music, mm-hmm. predominantly heavy metal at the time.
Yeah, which, again, can certainly satisfy you. And there's people that make a living at it, right? AC/DC, 3 chords throughout their entire career, right? And many
albums.
Do
not need to spend, God only knows how much. I think it was $8,000 a year at the time. Right. I could be wrong. My memory might be getting faulty at this point. But it was a lot of money for me to drop out because I couldn't do it, and I got frustrated, and understandably so. Mm-hmm. If I had just been told you have no business doing this, I'd stayed with psychology, I would have had a degree. And because let's be honest here, most people don't know jack shit when you're 17, 18, 19. You don't know diddly poo.
But you think you know everything.
But yeah.
That's the best part.
And well, that's the thing. And it's not even, maybe you're not even kidding yourself that you know everything. Cause like I knew I didn't know all this stuff, but you're headstrong. So I wanted to do it.
Yep. No,
I failed.
Understand. Yeah.
And I'm humble enough now to admit that's like, wow, I failed. I could not do that. That was just not what I was competent to do. I was not trained in these things. I did not do it long enough to do these things. And that was the end of it.
So it's often been said that it's not so much what happens to you as what happens in you. So how did you deal with that sense of failure at that time?
Just started playing in bands a lot. Like I wanted to be in an original kind of metalish band again. It was very my earlier stuff was Iron Maiden-y. I liked Ozzy, like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning all of my guitar skills from my biggest influence was the Ozzy and Randy Rhoads tribute book, the live album they put out in I think 87, 5 years after Randy died.
Yep.
There's a tab book that exists of the entire concert. So I was going through that and pulling stuff out of it to learn how to sound like I could actually competently play guitar. So that was my biggest influence. So I could sound okay when I was playing in other bands. I would never have said I was like this master shredder or anything like that, and I'm still not today. And
I do remember the first time I really got, I think it was 1982, got exposed to Randy Rhoads, his solo in Revelation Mother Earth, and that was the first time, so again, keeping in mind I was quite young still at the time, 1982, but the first time I was exposed to modal, right? He did a combination of Aeolian and Mixolydian modes through the solo there, and that's the first time I'd been exposed to modal forms of music, and so that was a mind blower for me. I was like, what? All right, so yeah, good stuff there from Blizzard of Oz. So at this time, so were you working, like doing the high school fast food thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I worked for a Little Caesars Pizza for a long, long time.
Oh, Little Caesars.
Yep, Little Caesars, exactly.
I dated once a gal that worked at. She managed a Little Caesars pizza back in the day. Okay, so you're working, slinging the pizza and playing music in the evening. And this goes on for how long? Have you at this time kind of hung up the research stuff, or just kind of a background thing? What does that look like?
Yeah, more background because again the internet hadn't kicked in yet.
Yep.
So I was trying to do bands with some friends for a few years, none of which were being very successful. Predominantly because, and this is going to probably be the most arrogant thing I say here, but they wouldn't freaking listen to me. You know, it's like I kept trying to guide it, and I hate to say it like a business, but like just be on time. We need to practice. Like when we do photos, everybody needs to look the part. Like just take it seriously.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I was the hard ass about it, and just trying to get everybody to know what they're doing. And like I handled everything, all the bookings, like, and we didn't play a lot. Because it was an all original metal thing, so I only had a niche market to appeal to in the first place. Sure. But we tried. We cut a 4-song demo in whatever year, early '90s, and but of course at that time grunge was coming in and kind of kicking the hell out of
it changed things.
At that point. Yeah, everything changed, and I started playing with some other folks that were doing something a little more '90s-ish, I would say. And let's see, so. What years would these be? That's what I was doing, odd jobs all the way up till about 96. And then I started working at TGI Fridays. And that was awesome in the sense that you made really good cash money you'd walk out with.
Yep.
So it wasn't like the biweekly check. You were going home with money every night.
You were waiting tables, like, clearly, yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting exactly right. Yeah. I was waiting tables, and I did that for quite a few years. And then when I was in and out of bands, that was always an easy thing to do because you can switch shifts with people normally very, very easily. Yep. So that was a good, even though the job beats the hell out of you, it was nice. And I was making enough money that was really when I started buying more equipment and getting just better at understanding things. So little by little, I was building up what I have now.
Okay. All right. So this goes on through your mid-20s.
Yep.
All right. And then, so any any tangential experiences that caused any awakening? Like, when was the first time that you really started to get a sense that perhaps things was either not as you were told, that there was more to what's going on out there than what meets the eye, than is allowed, if you will, in the mainstream narrative?
Well, that's interesting because I'd had a few oddball experiences. I had 2 UFO experiences.
Ooh.
And I had several spiritual experiences, none of which were of my doing.
Okay.
I was just around things.
Do you mind sharing those?
Um,
No, it's okay. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm certainly curious about the UFO stuff and the spiritual stuff.
Yeah, the UFOs. I'm laughing at myself because I just told these stories when Rose and I visited in North Carolina. I was telling everybody. So the problem is every time I tell these stories, and I don't have a problem sharing them, but I can't prove any of it.
No, that's.
So it's like I can't prove any of it. So
I understand implicitly that stuff, right?
These things affected me
Sure.
because obviously I was the one experiencing them, but. Yeah, there's no way I could even remotely prove it to anybody. But yeah, I had 2 UFO experiences. One was when I was 8, and I was in my mother's backyard, the house I lived in at the time, or my mother still lives, in fact. And I remember looking at the night sky. I was playing around in the backyard as it was getting to be nighttime, and this beautiful chandelier-looking craft, for lack of a better term, came tumbling slowly over my head and It looked really like a chandelier, kind of like the chandeliers my mother had in our house. In fact, it reminded me a lot of that, except that it was multicolored and rotating. And my mom was watching me from the upstairs window, and I pointed. I was like, "Mother, look!" And she looked at it. She looked at me, looked at it, and looked back. She's like, "Oh, that's nothing." And whatever the 8-year-old equivalent of bullshit went through my mind, like there's something there, kind of thing. And this is my mother to a T. Just denial of everything. Just don't deal with it. Just ignore the world and pretend everything is fine. Always that kind of thing.
Gosh, that's fascinating because I had I don't know, probably around the same age, 8 or 9, a very similar experience. And my parents were gone. We had I guess, babysitter or nanny or whatever that was staying with us. And the house we had was actually in Puyallup, Washington. And it was a fairly large house, but it had a giant picture window that looked out over, it framed Mount Rainier. And one morning I got up and there was a thing there, and the best way I can describe it is sort of a French triangle. But it was very bright and very well defined, and had it looked like symbology actually, just in the sky. And I asked her, I was like fascinated looking at it, and asked her what it was, and she goes, "Oh, that's just Venus, I think." I'm like, "Are you insane? What is wrong? What is wrong with you? Can you not see this?" And she she refused to look at it. And I thought that was just fascinating. And I had prior experiences where I understood that people did not want to touch, that they didn't want to go anywhere near anything that was weird at all. Perhaps a sign of the times. It's certainly more acceptable these days. But yeah, I totally feel you. Okay, so that was about 8 years old. And then another UFO thing?
Yeah. So that one, it just tumbled away, and that was the end of that. But that stuck with me because it was one of those early things, starting to understand psychology. The one thing I've always have been good at, and why I chose it in college, is psychology, because I've always actually been really good at it. So that stuck in my mind. My memory's always been very good, still is. I can remember things all the way back to like 2 to 3 years old. I actually can remember things like that. So that has the advantage of being able to understand how people react to things in different situations. Mm-hmm. And okay, so we jump up to when I was 17, and there were 4 of us on my mother's porch. This was August of 1990, my summer of junior to senior year in high school. So myself and 3 of my friends are sitting there talking, and we're looking. The porch looks out across the street to a neighbor's yard that's a good ways away, and I saw a light come out from behind a tree and go back, and then go out, come out, back, forth, back, forth. I'm like, well, that's the damnedest thing. So I get up and I walk down the street towards that general direction, and I look up and I see another light kind of doing this big circular perimeter around the area, around the block. And now this isn't a major city, but this is a real suburb. Like, there's houses everywhere, like that kind of thing. So I was like, huh. I say, hey guys, let's go up over to the Pumpy, which is like the dikes where the water recycling thingy is.
Yep.
And to get up higher, it's slightly in the woods, get up higher and just get away from the lights and everything. So we did that, and 7 craft, again, for lack of a better term, surrounded the dike area. They were, now this is nighttime, and I did take binoculars with me, and I was looking at them, and they were like a elliptical, what looked like they were gray, like a dark gray metal, but hard to tell, of course, at night. And they had a tri-pattern of blue and red lights on them, like 1, 2, 3 in a triangle. And one of them kept coming towards us and then going back, and then coming up towards us and going back. And it kept doing that, and I was like, oh my God, is this damn thing going to land? I was like, I hope it does.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk to them. I want to do this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's have communication. And this lasted for a little while, and then a bunch of military planes showed up.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was a bunch of fighter jets, and then 2 of these other planes that I always just called spotter planes, but I don't know what they really are. They were some other kind of, I think, jet, and they had big lights on the front. And it was odd. What they were doing was they were doing like this crisscross, like trying to shine their lights on the main craft, the one that was coming towards us. I guess that one was lower, if I had to guess. And it seemed like the fighter jets must have been getting closer and closer to the craft in general, because eventually they chased them off.
Interesting.
Now, we went back the next night around the same time, and the craft were there, and so were the jets. And it was the same situation, but only lasted for a short time, like maybe a few minutes at most.
Wow.
So that left a very, very, very lasting impression on me.
Absolutely. Especially to come back. Without even getting into my own, I will say I find it fascinating that I had 2 UFO experiences, one about the same 8 or 9 and one about 17. Just fascinating that those numbers line up. And then you have... Wow, yeah, so that'd certainly make an impression. I mean, certainly you know that when they tell you that it's swamp gas, right, you know that they're lying. So that certainly creates a sense of curiosity. You have mentioned to me and offline, more than once that you had, some spiritual experiences. And I don't think we've ever gone into. Do you mind telling us more about that? Or again, I fully understand how you say there's no way to prove it, because I'm often reticent to share mine as well. Not that I'm embarrassed or ashamed of it. It's just, it's my experience. And so I'm not sure how helpful it is for other people. Maybe it's an interesting story, but I have, no way to prove it. And I know that some people tell these stories as I don't know, for attention or whatever, to seem woo, right? And I just never want to get, it's like, that's never my intention. I don't really care about any of that. But certainly, I had experiences that were impactful to me. And your description, just in a little you've told me, sort of seems to fall in that same category. Like, yeah, it's something that happened. It certainly made me pay attention. Do you mind sharing some of that with us?
Well, I can sum them all up in this. Of course, at a young age, sometimes you mess around with things you shouldn't. And I've always been extremely strong-willed. So when friends would want to mess around with things you shouldn't be, quote unquote, I was always there. And it never bothered me. Like I didn't get scared. I just thought it was interesting. As a matter of fact, later on, I went on to go ghost hunting. Because I always had a very strong interest in understanding in science, I'd always be looking for ways of explaining and understanding all this stuff. But I did see that the biggest thing that I can tell you is that I did see evidence for spiritual possession with a weak-minded person. And that proved to me, even though I already could kind of feel things out, for lack of a better way of putting it, that there is a higher sense to this world. There's more to it than the physical. And after seeing these things, it was just like absolutely solid proof, because it was before my very eyes. And there are some dark things in this existence, whatever they may be, and they can affect the weak-minded. And that absolutely did prove to me that there is a spiritual reality to this reality. And it didn't change anything about me. I still kept trying to be the good person I was, or tried to be. And, it just didn't change anything. It was just more proof of what I already knew and understood.
So it's confirmation for you that there was
Yeah.
more to it. Yeah, my experience in certainly observation is that either the weak-minded or the willing, right? Those who are willing to go down that path or do those things.
Some people willingly invite it.
Yep, they do. All right. So, and how old were you when that occurred? What was the kind of the context of that?
Those would have been late teens and early 20s.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So, and then as you go on, you're waiting tables, playing some rock out with your sock out. All right. So thereafter, when did you begin to take a more serious or studious approach to some of the more I hate to say conspiratorial, but the tinfoil hat stuff? When did you begin to sort of look into that? What was the impetus for that?
The late 90s, and a friend named Todd introducing me to the Art Bell Show.
Oh, I was a big fan of the Art Bell Show way back in the day.
And welcome to Coast to Coast
Coast to Coast AM.
This is Art Bell.
Art Bell. Absolutely, man. I was a big fan of that. So, all right. So, what are some of the rabbit holes that you started going down early?
Well, that caught my attention, and that's when I started. Well, at this point, the internet did start to be a thing. So when I'd hear things of interest, I'd start looking them up. So as we're getting into the early 2000s, funny enough, at the same time, my tastes in music radically changed. That's when I started getting into the 1960s thing, getting into the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Oasis. They became one of my favorite bands. So I was kind of going in a very different direction. I was becoming my own singer-songwriter as opposed to be just a guitarist in a band contributing and doing background vocals. I became the focus at that point because I was writing my own songs. I was starting to do that myself and trying to do bands where I was completely the driving force. So what's interesting is it took all the way up till almost 30. I don't remember exactly what age, but in that ballpark where I really had the confidence and even the musical capability to be my own person and be the focal point of a band. But at the same point, I was also really getting into all this other stuff and understanding some of the machinations behind things, or at least what I could find. That's when I started hearing a guy with a real gravelly voice and who was very boisterous named Alex Jones.
All right.
And then I heard a very soft-spoken but self-assuring gentleman named Jordan Maxwell, though they were probably the two earliest ones I liked the most. And this is as we're getting into the 2000s. And I started absorbing that information big time. And of course, you get up to 2001 and those events.
Those events, right.
And shortly thereafter is when I really started diving headlong into it because while I fell for that for a couple of days, when I actually watched it, and I was like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah, exactly. I think
And it was from that point on that even though I didn't have the knowledge like I do now, I knew something was up. And that was it. I was done at that point. I was a quote unquote truther for, even though we didn't really call them back. Maybe we did. I don't even remember anymore when that started getting tossed around. But I was completely open to the conspiracy mindedness at that point. Like, hey, something's up. This is absolutely not like the mainstream says. And I was just learning little by little as the years went by.
So, yeah, I think that was again a watershed moment for many of us. Certainly those events, and yeah, you're just hitting all the same milestones. I mean, I'm not that much older than you, just a little bit.
No.
So certainly around the same time, all the same characters, the cast of characters playing along. Absolutely. So at this point, what? Again, like just said, I've told the story before. For me, on that, the Grimm Flowers event in the fall. Yeah, I bought into it for a couple of days until the story of the passports floating down came out. I was like, yeah, no. And then all the video, as you said, started to come in, and you're like, no, that's not at all. That's not even possible. Yeah, totally get it. Let's see. I'm trying to download. Oh, there we go. I got it. Perfect. I was getting your music out that you had sent to me. When did all right? So of those, so certainly that opens up your mind to the conspiratorial idea of things. I think I was in some ways pretty lucky that my dad had handed me a book. called The Unseen Hand, in 1984, something like that. The subtitle is literally A Conspiratorial View of History. And so there was all kinds of information in there regarding Illuminati and New World Order and that sort of thing. So when actually Bush Sr. came out and said New World Order openly, I was like, oh my God, it's happening right now. Right? I was like, oh. But of course, at the time, little did I know the glacial pace at which they tend to perform things. Beyond that, for many people, again, I know it did with me. All those things sort of put together. You got the Art Bell, you got Jordan Maxwell, and all those cast of characters, Prison Planet, and gay frogs. When you put all those things together, then again, your mind sort of opens up and you begin looking in different directions. Was there any particular thing that fascinated you any more than others? Specifically, like again, focused on the government lies or the academia or religion. Was there anything that you focused on specifically, or just kind of round robin, just interested in all of it?
Yeah, the stuff behind the stuff is what really got my interest, which is where the Saturn thing started coming in. I remember Jordan Maxwell used to talk a lot about that. I hadn't found the Bill Cooper stuff yet. Again, early internet days for a lot of the stuff, so it wasn't as easily accessible unless you really knew what you were looking for at that point.
Right.
But yeah, that in general, and I was hearing Jordan speak, and I just really liked a lot of what he was talking about, and I wanted to understand more about where did these things come from. Like, the one thing that I think most people with a brain can figure out is like the world as it is today is built off of the back of many, many other things for many, many years.
Right.
And that is what really started catching my attention. Like, so where does this come from and why? Whatever it happens to be. And you can look at anything in our world, in your life, and you can do that. Like, why is that the way it is, and where does it come from, and why? Why is it still here in this current age? And that started interesting me, especially the ancient religions, and then I started finding out what Mystery Babylon was and Saturn, like all those things.
Sure.
So yeah, as the 2000s started going by, I was getting better and better at understanding a lot of these things and piecing it together.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, because once you begin to start to realize the interconnectedness of things, right, and how this occurred, I think you're again that's discernment right there, bro. Once you kind of get past the individual things and begin to draw those lines on it, right? Like the classic conspiratorial guy, with he's got all the lines on the wall, right? He's got all the photographs up and the lines chased between them. Once you begin to do that, at least in your head, and draw those lines between them, then it starts to, once you see that it's a puzzle, right? And you get all those puzzle pieces starting to come together, that's when things get really interesting.
Yeah. By the way, there's something really important I skipped.
Okay.
That because I don't think about these things very much. I have never, even in my youth, been into drinking or drugs or smoking anything or anything whatsoever. Never interested me. Don't like the way they make me feel. Just never did anything for me. I mean, yeah, I like a good beer. I can watch I could drink 2 beers, watch Star Trek, and go to bed. Fine. But even in my youth, even though we would go out and I'd have some beers, it was never to the point of getting annihilated. Like, I was just never a party guy. And maybe that's why I don't look horrendous at 47 years old, because I just never destroyed myself like so many other people did.
Oh, I did.
And I had friends that with, massive problems. One friend had a heroin addiction. Like, I saw it destroy a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, especially it's a little unusual, I think, for someone to be involved in music for a long period of time, especially rock and roll, without being sort of exposed to some of those recreational chemicals. It sort of seems to come along with the territory. So I find that interesting. So did you ever have a vow that you were going to just be, clean, a straight edger? That wasn't a term when we were younger, but that was a thing for you, or it just didn't interest you?
Didn't interest me. Like, I didn't have the need. I didn't feel like spending the money. Like, none of these things. It's like there's nothing about doing that sort of thing that ever caught my attention. I like being able to think clearly. The one thing I'm a little cocky and arrogant about is my intellect, and I wanted to keep it that way. I wanted to stay functional, and here we are many years later, and I am still functional. So that's good.
That is good. I will tell you, I have some bad news. I have some bad news for you, brother. As you get older, that ability, that recall starts to slip a little bit. I'm very familiar with what you're saying, and that's frustrating beyond belief. And when you go, it's on the tip of my tongue. It'll happen. But maybe again that you have perhaps a bit of an advantage by avoiding those lovely chemicals. And I did not. I dove head first into it because to be honest, I didn't think I was going to make it past 30. I was gonna, put on that comet wear, right? And by that I mean, live fast, die young, be that bright shining star for a little bit. And it didn't turn out that way. Again, a little bit different for me now. But yeah, that's interesting. Again, most people I know that are in the music industry for any length of time often, imbibe at least to some degree. So it's fascinating that you did not. And
having a social drink doesn't bother me. I like Lambrusco. I can have a glass or two of wine. These things don't bother me, but it's literally never been an issue. If I never touched it again, I wouldn't give a flip.
Yep.
Unlike coffee.
Right. Yeah.
I love coffee. I would never want to give that up. I love the taste of it.
Yes, exactly. I do love the coffee for sure. But yeah, again, I do find it that's a pretty fascinating because some people again who don't do those things, right? It's either because they've had a problem with it in the past, and so they cannot, or they're kind of militantly opposed to it, right? And harass people who do. And so the fact that you're able to, manage it with a sense of moderation, again, kudos to you because not everyone can do that. And it is a bit unusual, I think. I've been in and around the music industry for a very long time. I'd say all of my adult life, but even before that, as a kid, I was involved, and my mom was in a traveling gospel band, so I grew up around the sound guy. So from a very young age.
That's the thing, man. That stuff, it always irritated me. Everyone's smoking cigarettes, which I think is just disgusting. I hate the smell. I have really bad allergies to dust. So just being around it has always irritated my eyes and my nose and all that. So it's just everything about those vices that most people in the entertainment business are plunged headlong into, I wanted nothing to do with it. And when people did it around me, it irritated me. I could not stand being in a band room with 3 other ding-dongs that had to have cigarettes going. It's you freaking kidding me? Stop.
Okay, so you were a little militant.
Well, it's not like they ever listened, but it would piss me off,
Yeah, no, I understand. I got you. No, I can totally get that. So, all right. So this idea then that you're now moving forward again, so you're beginning to put some of those pieces together in the lie that we're told. Right, so the history of mankind isn't what we're told. The place that we're in isn't what we're told. And so at what point as you're putting these puzzles together, at what point did it suddenly, was there an aha moment where you put together the idea that it's not just the things that we're told, but there is, again, something deeper. So you've had this experience when you're younger, that you see that there are unseen forces, perhaps, that are legit. They're real. There are things that we can't explain that are out there. Has there been that aha moment that it's all somehow connected, that it's not individual things, right? Again, you begin to stitch these things together and you go, oh, there's perhaps some meaning in all this, or there's an intention behind it. Did that ever strike you in that way?
Kind of, yeah. When I started understanding the secret societies thing and all that, and how far back this stuff went,
right?
The more I started piecing it together, symbolism is the big thing, because symbolism, understanding even basic symbolism, you'll start realizing when you see this stuff everywhere just how much our real world is manipulated. Right. It's been manipulated. It's been a setup from, well, depending upon where we're talking about and what we're talking about. But from the beginning, it's been a setup. There have been elites, for lack of a better term, manipulating things from behind the scenes to the goyim, to the sheep, to the general populace. They are guiding things. They are manipulating people. And I picked up on that one really quick, I started realizing, this symbol, that symbol, and then I started getting into the concepts of secret societies and why these existed, how far back these things really started, like just all these concepts. That's what really started doing it for me. And of course, when you listen to Alex Jones, which I did a lot in the early days, you're having him scream New World Order at you. But the thing is, 90% of what that guy says is actually pretty good. Sadly, he puts a great big old turd in the punch bowl, but you still learn a lot. Especially, he was a lot better early on too. I mean, yeah, he screamed a lot, but I'm saying in general, he wasn't like how he is now. How he's kind of not the same approach at all in comparison to 15 years ago when he was just, I don't even know what to say. He was just different. He was better. He was definitely better. Even what I can remember what he was talking about then, knowing what I know now, I thought he was a lot better at what he did. I can look back and be like, yeah, I don't know what happened to you, dude. Maybe you got slapped on the wrist or something, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I've always said that, traps don't work if there's no bait in them. And you don't want to come off crazy to begin with. You got to get the hook set, and then once you do, right, then things begin to change. So, but yeah, I agree with you that and this is one of the things that I take very seriously is it often matters far less what I think and believe when it comes to dealing with the stuff out there in the world, and if you're trying to put that together, than what those who run it believe. Right. And so from my perspective, especially, again, I would say sort of irrespective of my own experiences and what I see and perceive, there's part of it where I have to accept that this is what these guys believe. Right. And so they're going to behave in that way. And that helped open my eyes a great deal to accepting some of the vast level of darkness that occurs is, again, it's hard for good people to understand or accept or even acknowledge that some of these horrible things occur because you would never do that. And you just sort of can't imagine that people would do those things. But once you get better to understand what these people's even a loose, giving them a little credit there, but what they hold valuable and what they believe, it becomes far easier to not only see what they're doing, but to identify their behavior and to kind of, get that fingerprint, or as Crow likes to say, smell something burning in the kitchen, right? For me, it's like a fingerprint. I can just tell it because you sense the way that they begin to operate. So at what point then did it become sort of like a major thing? Clearly at this point. So I guess I'll ask you this, and I think I already know the answer. So what year did you begin to do the Cult of Saturn band and kind of put that together as an idea? What year was that?
5 or 6 years ago, and let me explain all of that, what that means, because again, crazy, creepy Christians taking things completely and utterly out of context. Now, by the time we get into 2010s plus, I had learned a lot about a lot. Not saying I would never claim to know it all, but I had a great understanding of things. The reason why I chose the name Cult of Saturn and the reason why I chose the name Secrets of Saturn is because I had a plan in mind when I decided I wanted to. Well, I was writing a new batch of songs. Let me get that part out, and I had a bunch written. And then I wanted to start. I was listening to podcasts all the time, and I was like, I can do this, and I've got the gear to do it. I just need to just start doing it. So I came up with this twofold idea where Secrets of Saturn would be the hit you over the head with the information, because what are we doing? We're talking about the secrets of Saturn, meaning the secret societies and all the things going on, like all the things that are hidden from us. We're talking about those secrets, the things that the elites keep from us, generally speaking. But of course, as we know, with their weird karmic crap, they do have to tell us in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
But that's not even what I'm talking about. Cult of Saturn is it's a dual fold thing. Now, as I said, I started getting into 60s and early 70s kind of styling and all that. That's still to this day what I'm into, what I like music-wise. And I thought it sounded like a cool, trippy 60s name. But the name Cult of Saturn was the name of a heavily retweeted Jordan Maxwell video of one of his most famous presentations. And I was like, oh, that's a cool name for a band. It sounds very 60s-y, but here's the thing. If I put out music under the name Cult of Saturn, and people hear like what's happening now, like I've been using my favorite track that I've recorded, Angel Song. A lot of people are hearing that. If they Google that, you're going to find a lot more than a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a trick, to be blunt about it. It
Sure.
was a setup for people to learn. If you look up what the cult of Saturn is, like, oh my God, what is this? You start finding about the bad guys. So all the crazy, creepy Christians who think it's all about Satan and all that, no, this was a setup for me to educate people. Everything I do is about educating and giving people information to learn. That's it. That symbol that I have there, someone made for me and gave it to me as a gift. It's a combination Saturn and Sun, because those things get interchanged a lot with the old secret societies, and we could go on and on about that stuff. So I like that symbol so much, I used it for both of them. I was like, well, this works actually for both sides of the things I want to do. And this is before I got in with Crow, very shortly before I got in with Crow. And that's it. That is the whole mystery, dark secret behind everything. There's nothing evil about anything I've ever done. It's all about helping to wake people up, give them information, and just a big old setup by me so that people would hopefully find information. Now, the music thing has never gotten big enough that it's really worked to any great degree, but I'm going to keep using it because I've got the symbols made, the logo that I like. I've got music recorded that people are now finally starting to hear because my name is finally getting out there enough with all the things I'm doing that people are hearing it and liking it, which is great. So that's it. Now, the last piece of the puzzle that's actually kind of interesting is why did I call that EP Sanctum Sanctorum? Now, that is Latin for the Holy of Holies, and anybody who's Catholic probably has heard of this. And it's that part of the temple or the cathedral or whatever thing you're in where only the priest or whatever his or her title is can go. That's it. Now, I had a dream when I was recording this album, and I was doing a lot of late nights trying to get these tracks done and using pretty substandard equipment compared to what I've got now just to get this EP done. And it was a very, very strange dream. I was in this giant place that was all white. It was almost like clouds were the walls. And there was like multi-tiered, and there were people all over the place. But there was this low, what's a good way to put it? Like a repetitive beat going, but it was speaking Sanctum Sanctorum. It was almost, I jokingly called it the voice of God at the time, just like kind of telling me this, right? But there was a great big wall of like this cloud-like material near where I was standing in this dream, and the title Sanctum Sanctorum was kind of 3D coming out of it, like almost like an old school Roman or like a Greco-Roman kind of thing. That's kind of what it reminded me of, but it wasn't carved into it. It was actually three-dimensionally coming out of it. So that's where I got it from. And I already knew what it meant because I already had been learning all this stuff. So that's why I called it that. I was like, well, I didn't have that dream for nothing. So there you go.
There you go.
Again, nothing crazy, creepy, satanic, nothing. Everything. I've never done anything for a dark, evil reason, no matter what crazy, creepy Christians think. They're just taking everything completely and utterly out of context. So all the horrible things that have been said about me, and there have been several people who have done this kind of nonsense coming at me, you're wrong about every single thing you say about me. And probably just about everyone else too. I mean, you might have a few things right, but for the most part, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You're absolutely fucking wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel you in that sense of being unfairly accused. But you know what? When they come after you for speaking the truth, I just, that makes me walk about 2 inches taller. I'm like, when I started getting thumbs down, on videos and stuff, I'm like, okay, now I'm actually, yeah, when you're over the target, right, you start getting the flag. So
Right.
I feel you, brother, man. I feel how it is to get unfairly accused of things, especially when they're so far off. But, again, on the other hand, some people are going to see things no matter what they look for, right? If you're looking for red cars, you're going to see red cars everywhere. And I know that there are people in every group, right? There are some within New Age community. There are some within Christianity. Like they're looking for a boogie under every bush. And if, if you look there, they're going to be one there, right? So, I've learned it this way. If you turn on the light in darkness, you're bound to draw some bugs. It's just going to happen, right? So, again, I'm sure that, I know for myself and from people I've talked to in the community that we're all super appreciative of the amazing amount of hard work that you've done, you and Crow both, and the efforts that you put into not only to reveal some of these things and put out some of these great ideas on the table, but your exegesis is really good. The way that you approach it is really solid. And again, avoid making claims that you can't prove, but say these are some ideas to consider. I think that's a great way to do it, in my view. Again, sorry, I got a little distracted. There's a little, again, we get on these topics and we got even folks show up in the chat, right? So you're drawing, even.
Oh, really? What? Anything interesting that I should hear about?
Oh, Tony showed up. So again, I don't like to give him any attention, but then it started
saying what? How evil I am? And all that nonsense?
He got shut down real quick. I just timed him out there. Silenced him, but then even other people that I consider everybody friends, but started kind of going back and forth about some of that same stuff. So again, I hate to see it. I just want everybody to be civil to one another, and again, I'll just leave it there.
Hey man, you're entitled to your opinion, but at some point you got to be freaking realistic. Like, you can't go around saying horrible things about people with zero evidence. You can't. Actually, that's illegal.
Yeah, that's the very, very definition of slander, right? And there's laws.
It is slander.
There's laws on the books for that.
You cannot say like super bad things about people. I mean, you can dislike somebody all you want. There's plenty of people I dislike, but some of the things I've seen some of these crazy, creepy Christians do, it's just like, oh my God, who pissed in your Cheerios, man?
Well, again, again, here's my take, right, is that I don't even associate them with Christianity. Again, they can claim whatever they want, but for me, doing so is about the same as saying, that the Jews are the problem, right? Okay, well, are there powerful Jews who are involved in all this stuff? Absolutely. Does that mean that everybody that's a Jew is a secret grappler? I think to me that's a silly idea, right? So
of course it is. That's blanket statements. This has always been something I've had a huge problem with. You cannot make blanket statements about anything.
Exactly, it just doesn't,
because you're just trying to grab everything and go, that is evil.
Right.
Well, that just proves to me you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground.
Right. Or you, again, assume that everything that you don't know is evil, right? So we have that. So again, I don't really even give most of those folks the credit of using the term Christianity, because it's they may adopt a religious viewpoint, but it certainly is inconsistent with what I understand it to be. And I think most people who genuinely try to follow the namesake, which is Christ, would that be Yeshua? So those people would probably mostly agree, right, that when you act in a hateful way, that's exactly the opposite. I think the exact quote is something to the effect of, I'll try to get as close as I can here, right, is love those who persecute you, and be kind to those who hate you, and pray for those who despitefully use you. So I think doing other than that is avoiding your explicitly disobeying those directives, and so you don't get to hang that with that name and make yourself out to be holier than thou. So yeah, I know. Church lady came out. I know. So again, that's why I just go. I don't necessarily like even to say, all the Christians are bad, because I don't think they are. I don't think all the Jews are bad. I don't think even, for example, I don't even think all the Masons are bad. I think 90% of Masons are at such a low level.
Oh, let's talk about them.
They have no idea of what
satanic nonsense.
They have no.
Let's talk about the Masons.
All right. Well, again, I'm
not one. Never been one. Don't have an interest in being one. However, I know a lot of their secrets because I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of the things that they think are so clever that they know about snickering behind closed doors. Well, I already know those things, a lot of them, enough to know that you don't know. But the Masons, for the most part, I would say 99% of the Masons are just good old boys in their towns doing their little get-togethers, having dinner. As a matter of fact, I have a friend I went to high school with that I've known forever who joined because his dad was one, and when he passed away, he tried to emulate his dad. And he said, Jason, it's just a bunch of old guys hanging out having dinner. And I was like, I know that. It's not like on the lower levels, it's not anything.
Well,
now,
this goes back
there and all the pomp and circumstances there, but you don't know diddly poo until you get all the way up to so let's just break this down. The Masons can be just your typical everyday porch mason, first degree, second degree, third degree. Third degree is called a master mason. You can stop right there. You can be a third degree master mason, and then you can become a worshipful master, meaning the leader of the lodge, and in your blue lodge, wherever it is that you signed up originally after you knocked on the door and asked to be part of it with your 2 witnesses, blah, 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 all that nonsense. However, you can then choose to go to the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. The Scottish Rite seems to be, from what I understand, the more powerful sect, for lack of a better way of putting it. And you can go through normal means all the way up to the 32nd degree. At that point, you can become a Shriner. Any Shriner you've ever met has to be a 32nd degree Mason. Just to throw that little bit of info out there if people don't know. The big thing is, there is a 33rd degree temple in Washington, D.C. Only certain people get selected to go there. And whatever their process is for choosing, I couldn't exactly say, but apparently only select people get chosen for that honorary 33rd degree. And that's the only official highest degree. Now, is there more past them? I suspect that there probably are other things, but they would be for really the select few. And anybody who truly gets chosen to be a 33rd degree, I doubt very much they're talking. But go ahead and do a search and see who's a 33rd degree Freemason out there, admittedly, and you might find it interesting.
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, I often would liken it, for example, to say, how many millions of Catholics are out there, right? Are those Catholics evil Luciferians? Again, 99.9% are not. They're true believers. They may be sincere, but sincerely mistaken or sincerely misled. Now, is the Catholic Church and what happens at the Vatican, is that evil? Yeah, right. And in my view,
well, yeah.
I mean, right. But
Spanish Inquisition. There you go.
There you go. Right. So, I mean, we can choose a whole bunch of episodes within the realm of that organization to discover where they did explicitly evil. Does that mean that people who are of the Catholic faith are therefore evil? Again, in my opinion, no. I've met some really great Catholics. And so, again, so in the same way that compartmentalization works, so I say at the beginning, 90% plus of people who are Masons it's a fraternal organization, and they will argue to their death because that's exactly what they know, right? Going back to the idea of a picture, they haven't been to the next room. They don't know. And so they only know what they've been told, and they're going to absolutely, many of them have been there for 30 or 40 years, decades. And they only go as far as they go. And so to them, that's all they see. And that's again, now, are there, again, signs and symbols, and is there creepy stuff that goes on beyond a certain level? It seems to be so. But again, most of them are unaware of it. So this is where, again, I come to the idea, and the same thing as it deals with you or anybody else, is that when people go out and make these blanket statements, right, and go, the Jews, right, or the Masons, or, again, even the Jesuits. Now, I'd say that most of the people who are involved at the level of being in Jesuits are probably compromised to a degree that we would be uncomfortable with. Yet, again, when you make these blatant statements without the evidence to back it up, right? What you do is you put everybody in a compromised situation because you're making unsubstantiated claims of specificity and that you cannot back up. Right. So again, when you say these things publicly, that is slander, and when you publish them in any form, including electronic, that becomes libel, and that's criminal prosecution. So for those who may be still kind of hiding out that we just can't see there in the chat, keep in mind when you do that, you're subject to criminal prosecution. Don't think it won't happen. Things often move slowly, or the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they will run you over. So keep that in mind. But again, I just say overall, if you just want to be a decent person, irrespective of what religion or mindset you subscribe to, throwing hatred on people, not the way, man. I mean,
no,
and I don't think
screaming, yelling, cussing.
I'm again
accusing with zero evidence. None of those things are what I would consider godly or Christ-like, in my opinion.
Yeah, or even again, or even decent. And again, it's not. I always say
it's not even the traits of a decent human being.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say, again, it's not my job to tell anybody else what to do or how to be. But there are just a few things I think that we can all agree upon, which is, again, if you want to be a decent human being, right? You express compassion and love toward others, and those things don't get it, right? Those things don't comply with that. They don't comport with that, no matter what you think. Again, so I have often said that even those people who are involved in doing a lot of this wicked stuff, I more feel sorry for them than have hatred. I'm often angry, right, about the things that happen in this world, especially to those who are at risk, right, especially children, and the things that we know that goes on in dark places there is putrid, and it hurts my soul, right, to know these things occur, and also that I feel in many ways powerless to change that. Other than doing, again, I find that again changing the world is a very difficult proposition, but knowing what I know, or at least seeing things the way I do, that there's this interconnectedness of all things, and that intention is such a powerful thing. That if by changing your intention to something that's positive and putting love out into the world, you literally change in a physical, manifesting way the world around you. And so you may not be able to change the world, but you can change the world around you. And get enough people together doing that and manifesting those things, you can have a profound impact on the way that people treat one another. I find this, for example, we're kind of sick of talking about the mask stuff, but it is a good example of this, is that the people who supposedly say that they're doing it I'm doing it for you, right? I'm doing it to help you. But they're the first ones to be maskholds and to call anybody out who's not wearing it and to cast hatred. And I hope you die. Well, that's inconsistent with the idea that you're doing it because you're a caring person, right? You're doing it out of fear, and you're doing it out of compliance, and you're mad that other people don't do it too, right? Because you feel inconvenienced by it, and you'll be damned if you're going to let other people not be inconvenienced by it. But I find, again, in my experience, that those who come off with a challenge, right? They're going to be rebellious. I'm not doing what you tell me. It doesn't go well for them. They're the ones that get kicked out of stores and that sort of stuff. And again, I can't confirm whether a lot of the stuff that we see on social media is even legitimate. A lot of it seems contrived to me. But what I can say is that in my own personal experience, I have seen a few people that get hostile when they're asked to put on a mask, and it just doesn't go well for them. They get challenged because the people who work there, they don't want to do it. They got to do their job, and they're going to get in trouble if they don't do their job. But when I approach it with kindness and compassion, I smile. I mean, so here's an example, right? This is a Starbucks around the corner, and they're, as you know, that they're a big social justice warrior company, and they're always hard left.
Yeah,
and,
they are.
They do that stuff, right? So right away they put the mask thing into effect, even before the state of Washington did. And of course, I'm in the Seattle area, which is even more so. So we might as well be New Zealand in that regard, right? Very hard left. And so they had the sign up there, but until the state mandated it, they never gave me. I mean, because I go in there pretty frequently, they know me, right? Hey, Baldini, it's sort of like Cliff, at Cheers, right? Hey, because I have I have a unique drink that I order because it's kind of close to the drink that I make at home, and so when I'm on the go, I'll often order it in advance so I can just run in. It's faster than even the drive-through, and so they didn't give me much of a hard time. And then once the mandate came down and they had it up on the wall, right? You had to have blah blah. And so when I came in, they're like, "Oh, do you have a mask?" And I'm like, "No, medical exemption." They're like, "Okay." So in most places, like grocery stores and that sort of stuff, when I say medical exemption, okay, fine, they let me go on through. But the actual mandate says that they have to make accommodation for you. So they could, for example, at Trader Joe's or wherever, just say, "Tell us what you need, and we'll go get it for you. Bring it out." They could do that.
They could.
And nobody's offered that, and I would say no.
The $10 an hour employee probably doesn't give a flip.
Yeah, right. So
You've already done something to meet the criteria of, okay, I'll leave you alone now.
Sure. So at the Starbucks, right? So they said, well, we can bring it out to you, or you can go through the drive-through. And I was like, when they say drive-through, I'm like, okay, we're done. And so I didn't go back for about 2 weeks. And then I ordered in advance. I had kind of forgotten it, so I ordered in advance. And I went up, and I went to the door, and I wouldn't go in. And I just smiled at them. They said, "Hey, Baldini," and I said, it's like, "Oh, you have to have a mask." And I was like, "Yeah, I have a medical exemption." And they're like, and so, but they just brought it out to me. And I smiled and I thanked them, blah, blah. And so that went on for I don't know, 2, 3, 4 days where they would bring it out to me. And then finally the manager's just like, there's nobody there. He's like, come on in. So I made a big deal of it. I just covered my mouth with my hand, right? And I kind of giggled and ran it. I ran in and grabbed it and, hey, thanks guys, and ran out. And everybody laughed. And it's been that way ever since, right? When I come in, they just wave me in and I run in there with my hand over my mouth like it's my mask. And it's not, right? It's not a big deal. And so everywhere that I go, even when they come off very hostile, right? Sir, you have to have a mask. I'm like, oh, I have a medical exemption. Thanks. And I smile, right? I'm like, oh, thank you. And it goes perfect, right? And then I see people that come behind me and they're like, oh, no, wear a stupid fucking mask, right? And that doesn't go well. Just last night I stopped at Trader Joe's and there was a guy in there, late 60s, early 70s. And he came up and, he had a mask on. I couldn't at first tell what he was saying because I had my earphones in. I was listening to Iron Realm Media. And he came up and I could tell that he wanted to talk about something to do with a mask. I'm like, oh boy. But finally he pulled down his mask. He's like, thank you for not wearing a mask. That is awesome. And we started talking for a minute and he actually kind of got teary-eyed, right? He's like, thank you so much for having the balls, right, to not do this. He's like, how do you do it? And I just like, oh, it's a medical exemption. He goes like, yeah. He goes, I'm too, can't remember exactly how he said it, but basically, I'm too rebellious for that. He goes, I'll get arrested. So I just carry this stupid mask with me, and when I have to have it, I put it on for a minute, right, just because I don't want to get in trouble, right? He's like, because I will start arguing. He's like, I'm at an age where the threat of life in prison is not that big a threat. That's pretty funny. But he was literally brought to tears, right, by the idea that I just didn't give a shit. And but again, my whole thing is is when you do it with kindness and compassion, I've had no trouble. It's the people who get angry on either side, right? Those mask holes who just insist that you do it because they have to do it, and we're all in this, together. But I want you to die if you don't do it, right? That's not compassionate.
Not even close,
right? So I just find that if you're nice to people and you don't argue, it goes a long, long way. And people, that's one thing about wearing a mask is you can't really tell if people are smiling. And so I love the idea now that everybody's wearing a mask and they're faceless. I don't have one, and so I smile at them all the time. And I can tell that some are not pleased by it, but again, I continue to do it. So I just think, again, this is my views, is that when you can comport yourself and put out a vibe of love and compassion to others, all right, and especially for me, some of the most difficult ones are to love people who are unlovely, who are difficult, right, and because they seem to need it the most. And so when it comes to people like the trolls and stuff, I rarely will argue with them. Mostly, my first thought is, I'm sorry your mommy didn't love you. But I mean, it comes off as mean. But seriously, I am, my first thought usually is, who hurt you so badly, right, that you feel that this is an appropriate way to respond to people, because that's not what decent people do. And I just, again, my hope is that people would return to a sense of decency. But I also find that most people who don't love themselves cannot, right? I mean, from my perspective, again, the words of the teacher, Jesus said that love God with all your heart, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your Savior, your neighbor as yourself. Right, and that means that you must love yourself, or you cannot truly love others. And I think that's a very difficult proposition for many people, because we know where we keep where the skeletons are in our closet, right? But once, I think, if you can work through that, and from my perspective, that largely comes from a relationship with your Creator. The more you're connected with that, whether that's through the creation or whether it's directly with the Creator Himself, when you put yourself in a mindset of gratitude, it changes your worldview to such that you can open your hand, you're not grasping anymore, and you can receive and then give love as a compassionate person. So I hope that more people adopt that point of view. Jason, we're kind of coming now to the end. Is there anything that you want to add? Did you forget anything that you wanted to toss in here? Absolutely want to play some music on the way out, and I'll let you choose that. But is there anything you want to, parting words that you want to give to our guests?
Well, again, to all the people who are just saying crazy stuff, you're wrong. You've taken everything out of context. I'm sorry that you don't get it. but it is what it is, man. You should really take a moment to think about things before you go spouting off to the world at large. And again, to people who do things that maybe you shouldn't be, you should really think about the consequences of that, because you're just not representing what these things you supposedly are subscribing to or ascribing to yourself.
Right.
You're just not getting it. You're
Well,
just not getting it.
And as you say, I certainly told my kids this as they were growing up. You're free to make choices, and you're free to do those things, but you're never free from the consequences of those choices.
Correct, and I'm totally cool with that. As far as what we're gonna go out with the music, I tried to put, again, like I was saying earlier with the music thing, or with the podcast and the music. The podcast was to hit you over the head with the info. The music was to kind of slip it in there. So there's a lot of stuff to educate slipped into the lyrics of the 6 songs on that EP. Yeah. And right now, and again, not for evil intent, all to educate. My plan has always been, wow, I heard this really cool song called Angel Song. I want to hear other stuff by that band. What are they called? They're called Cult of Saturn. That's good on Google. Cult of Saturn band. Boom, you find my Bandcamp where it's at. But then you find an insane amount of stuff, one of which will almost certainly be some Jordan Maxwell videos, which is great because that's what I want you to watch. That was a great intro for me. And if you want to learn and you need to learn, because we're in a pretty bad pickle now. This is not 10 years ago. This is certainly not 20 years ago. And wow, things are. I don't know what exactly is going to happen, but they are. In my opinion, this whole thing is a litmus test for much bigger and probably not so good things.
They're not letting up, that's for sure.
No.
I find it really fascinating, even learning things more about you today, Jason, is that we have so many things in common and corollary. When I was playing
That's
music,
probably what I got along right.
Yeah, right.
'Cause I was probably the first person you really started to talk to in this, who was out there doing stuff, right? Like it was one of the earliest ones, if not the first.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, again, the Crrow777 episode, I think 154, was the first time I ever spoke publicly about anything, right? I kind of just kept stuff to myself. I've been researching for a very long time, but I didn't really talk to hardly anybody other than some friends about it. So, but I laugh when you talk about your intention behind the music is because, again, back when I was playing with Joe and Jim back in the day, I always said that we were sheep in wolves' clothing. Right, right. We were doing it backwards.
It's kind of that same thing. Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. People think that Saturn, Satan, evil, blah 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 blah. No, you're wrong. It's all to educate and illuminate you. If you want me to use cute words,
don't use the Illuminati. You're very Illuminati, very naughty. All right. So, what would you? I have the songs queued up here. Is there one you'd like to go out with? Angel Song, or that's a popular one, of course.
That's the one I play all the time, so people can hear that all the time, and that is my favorite track that I've ever recorded. I've got a bunch of stuff written that I really like that I don't have anywhere near finished, but once I can finally afford to do this little mother-in-law apartment that's in our new house as an actual studio, I plan on doing a whole bunch of recording.
And of course, I'd love to help and be involved with that because
I
love it. I love it too. But let's pick one, and we'll share that with our listeners on the way out. We'll make that our outro music. Any of them, your choice, my friend.
Well, I'll give the backstory to it, but the one thing I would like to throw out there, even though I know we don't have a massive audience, you never know how far these things reach, and I don't talk about this enough. I really want a live band to work with, people who like the music I do, the music that I write, and who are willing to back me up. I want a live band to do this. People need this, especially now. And here's the thing, now that years have gone by, I have all the equipment to do it. I literally just need some folks whose heads aren't up their asses and who can set their egos aside and just work with me on this stuff.
Sorry, my head's way up my ass. I'm sorry.
So's mine.
Rectal encephalitis. It's
Most people need a rectal craniotomy at some point.
Exactly. When you have rectal encephalitis, you got to pull that thing out. Again, were I closer, my friend, and I'm trying to find a way to do this, even at distance stuff. I'm trying to work with Joe and try to get him up to speed technically so that we can kind of start doing this, looking at a variety of different ways to pass tracks back and forth. But I totally get wanting to play in person with. There's just something about playing with musicians in the same space that is just again that you develop a kind of psychic connection. You just know what the guy's going to play next. You just feel where that turnaround's coming, right? It's a pretty special thing. So I absolutely get that. So yeah, if you guys want to do that, how can people reach you, Jason?
Well, if you're in the area in which I live, which is the greater New Orleans area, you just email me, secretsofsaturn@gmail.com. My evil, demonic, totally possessed by Satan email. Rawr, I'm evil.
And you'll have a sacrifice with a chicken to
something.
To seal
Chop
the deal.
its head, throw it on the table, play the kazoo, all that stuff.
To seal the deal, yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Rawr. I'm going to light a candle right after. So, yeah, there you go. All right.
Candles. Make sure it's a pumpkin.
Oh, there you go. I'm down with that. It's pumpkin spice candles because it's that time of year. Yes.
It's almost.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I do like about fall.
I'm sorry, man. It's gotten over the top silly. I just start thinking back about stuff that people say, and I just like,
we're evil.
Are you fucking kidding me, man? I'm sorry.
Oh man, some of the things people have said, like I just can't believe they take themselves this seriously. I mean, I've read some of the stuff, and I've watched a couple of things that people have put out about us. I'm just like, are you serious? I mean, where are you getting this from? Like, you are out of your cotton picking mind.
Well, I think some of them are. I've seen a variety.
They are. I mean,
I've seen a variety
sadly,
of content.
That could be the truth. It could be like I'm not even being mean here. Maybe some people just have some emotional issues, and that's what they're latching onto.
Well, that's what I've seen both, right? I've seen those who are just hyper religious, and they have been trained to treat anything that they don't like, right, as inherently evil. And then there are others who, to me, clearly have emotional and psychological issues, and they actually need help.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't say that in a dismissive way at all. It's actually some compassion, which is some people really need help. And there may be a danger to themselves and others. In any way, without getting again too bogged down in that, which you gonna let me just pick one off the top here, or you have one specific?
Well, there's stories behind all of them because they were all inspired by something. But you know what? Let's do track one. It's called "You Were Once a Hero."
Okay. And
I'll explain that little background story to it because I told this to Rose not too long ago, and she thought it was hysterical. So the first track on this EP is called "You Were Once a Hero," and what it's about is people letting you down, people that you really looked up to, that you really cared about. And the initial idea kind of came from a girl who broke my heart really bad, as a lot of songs are. But it's actually truly about Alex Jones when I really started to realize the turd in the punch bowl that he can be. Because obviously a lot of my awakening, he had a huge part in it. And when as I learned and learned and learned, I realized that he's just not the be all end all. Mm-hmm. And he used to be a hero to me of sorts. I never really had heroes, but it made a great tagline for the chorus. So as you listen to the words, you can pick up on that it's just that feeling of feeling kind of betrayed and let down and all that kind of stuff. So there you go.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that you chose that way, because I was just telling my lovely bride last night, we're talking about a situation, and I was like, you can only truly be betrayed by someone who loves you or someone whom you love. Right. Otherwise, you don't care. Right? It's not a betrayal when someone, especially an enemy, says something bad about you, because you don't really care and you expect it. But it's only someone whom you love that can truly betray you. So that is kind of I think one of the dangers of having heroes. Even again within our community, if at some point if you disagree or you don't like something that they say, you're going to feel somehow betrayed because they don't have the same views as you do, and you reach out and then they don't accept your views, and then you feel like, oh, they're a shill, and then we get stuff going back and forth all the time. And again, that's my biggest concern, is that this community tears itself apart from the inside, which I would hate to see, because these are some of the best people so far that I've come across as a group in my life. And so love this.
That's the last point I'd actually like to leave out on, if we're going to call it here. The shill calling needs to stop, because you're not helping anything. Do you seriously think that most of the people out there in the truth movement are being paid by a government agency or some shadowy figure somewhere to go out and do stupid things, like say stupid things. No, they're just people who have done what we've done. It's just some get it more than others. Yeah. That's the real secret. Now, there are a few, and Alex is one of the ones I am suspicious about just because the guy makes millions of dollars a year. Go look up his value, his worth, like what he pulls in. InfoWars is a great business. And, I respect him for being able to do that. Most people cannot. Most people who are into the truth movement are destitute, to be blunt about it. Most of us are struggling to pay our bills. I certainly live month to month. But there are a few people out there. The other one I'm highly, highly, highly suspicious of, and I'm not afraid to say this, is Eric Dubay. There's something about that guy. It really throws me off. My spider sense says bad news. And then, of course, you have crazy-ass shills like – or not shills, but frauds like David Wilcock and his blue chicken people nonsense. Those are people who are just taking the woo side of things, making up some stories that they think are good and getting a bunch of suckers to buy it.
Yeah, and there are a number
– have they been buying it.
There are a number of people who get, I don't know, a bit of attention.
They're
right?
not shills, they're shysters.
Well, yeah, or they'll say things, and I think that again, some of them are they begin to believe their own press, right? And so they just kind of believe that they've got some special insight. And again, I find that for me, it doesn't help. It's not of value to start attacking anybody because again, like who am I to say, right? I just go good discernment, right? And I have trust that people with good discernment will ultimately figure out what is trustworthy and what is not, right? And just if somebody says they have the truth and that they're the only one that can dole it out, I'm suspicious of that for good reason, But beyond that, again, just develop good discernment, and then you can find truth all over the place, and you're not afraid of it, right? You're not afraid to go looking in even dark places because it doesn't affect you that way, right? It's the same reason that Rose and I can do the Poppycock Report, right, on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. It doesn't affect us to read the news because it's not depressing, because we don't believe it, right? It's just not. It's just nonsense. So it just doesn't affect me in the same way. I mean, there are times you get disappointed in the way people behave, but overall, I think again, when you develop your own sense of discernment, then you don't really have to worry about being misled, because you'll sense it and you'll just know. All right, so with that, again, you can reach out to Jason Lindgren. He's been our guest today. Jason, thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning. I'm sure everybody, a lot of good stuff in the chat, and I'm sure that, again, you're welcome to, if you want, mirror this, or I know it's too small a channel for you, really. But if you want to
look at things that way.
Point people in that direction and say, hey, this is if you want to know the answers, if you want to know the background, here it is. I think you've been again very open and transparent about again your thoughts and your experiences and how you got to where you are. And again, I think that's part of the intention of doing this show for me, is to share people's awakening stories and how they got to where they are. And I've said before, I love the idea that people all start from very different places, and as we begin to look for the truth, we find ourselves in very close proximity to one another and sitting in the same parking lot, right? And I love that, and I'm so very excited for the doors to open to go inside, right? And see what's in this place that we came to. I'm excited to see that, but I love again the quality of people who have joined together to become this merry band, this tribe. And again, my encouragement is always just to again treat others with respect, and keep in mind that a lot of times people do things not because of you. They're frankly, most of the time, people are not very interested in others. They're very interested in themselves. They have their own reasons for doing things, and once you kind of pull that together and understand that they do the things they do because of internal reasons, usually not so much for external reasons, it becomes a lot easier to either ignore them or just to have thick skin about it. So with that, again, Jason, thanks so much. Secrets of Saturn at gmail.com. You can reach out to Jason. Of course, you can catch him at Secrets of Saturn channel right here on YouTube, as well as Crrow777 Radio, both on YouTube and, of course, Crrow777Radio.com, the only real Crrow777. There are people who are kind of cheating there and misusing that, as people are wont to do. So,
by the way, before I forget, we have a big announcement of the guest coming this week on Crrow777 Radio. So keep it tuned. It's somebody that has had a lot of requests.
Is that the one that dropped today, or? Or is
sorry?
is that the one that dropped this morning, or is that coming up on
No,
Thursday?
that'll be the one that'll be this Thursday. We're recording it on Monday, but we haven't announced it yet. So stay tuned. It's a big mystery, but I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised with who we're bringing on.
Awesome. It's always good stuff there. I'm actually very far behind right now, so I try to catch as catch can. Jason, again, thank you so much, my friend, for taking the time to be with us and for being, again, so transparent and vulnerable to share your story. We're going to leave you with You Were Once a Hero. And Jason, what I'm going to do is, again, because of the stuff we were talking about beforehand, in order to play this well, I'm going to drop the call with you, and then I'll just come back afterwards and we'll chat. We'll chat afterwards. So with that, I'll say goodbye for now, and then I'll call you right back. And so this is Jason Lindgren. You Were Once a Hero from Secrets of Saturn, Sanctum Sanctorum. Thanks again, everybody, for being with us. See you tomorrow.